Let me begin by conveying my sincere congratulations to Guancha Media for organizing this event. And I'm very happy to be invited to speak to you today about the state of global governance. And as many of you may know, I've actually written a book called The Great Convergence about Global Governance, building on my 10 years of experience as Singapore's ambassador to the United Nations. So when I speak about global governance, it's a subject that I'm deeply passionate about and deeply concerned about. And so if you ask me, for example, what is the state of global governance today, I would say we face a paradoxical situation on the issue of global governance. On the one hand, demand for global governance is growing dramatically. But on the other hand, the supply of global governance is diminishing. And as you can see, it's a paradox. If you are an economics market, when demand goes up, supply should go up. But in the field of global governance, the opposite is happening. So why is this the case? And this is what I plan to try to address in my remarks to you today in the 10 to 15 minutes assigned to me. Firstly, why is the demand growing? Well, the simple reason why demand for global governance is growing is because the world is genuinely shrinking. And we are becoming a very small, interdependent world. And why is this happening? Many forces have created this small, interdependent world. The forces of globalization that have been unleashed for the past 100, 200 years, where we have connected all the countries in the world together through trade and economic links, that has shrunk the world and has created, as some say, maybe as Kofi Annan said, a small global village. And at the same time, you're also coming to see that technology is shrinking our world. Today, when an event occurs anywhere on planet Earth, whether it's an earthquake in Japan or a war in Gaza, we find out about it immediately. Distance has disappeared. Quite literally, we live in one small world. And at the same time, this one small world is creating many common challenges for humanity to deal with. We saw this clearly when we had to deal with a pandemic. It spread from one corner of the other corner to the other corner of the world instantly. And also we see this now with the threat of climate change. Climate change is going to affect every country in the world. No country is immune from climate change. So all this, for all these reasons, as the world is shrinking and becoming a smaller and smaller place, we need to generate more global governance. And again, to try and explain this even more clearly, in my book, The Great Convergence, I use what I call a simple boat analogy. In the past, when in the 8 billion people on planet Earth, when we lived in 193 countries, it was almost as though we were living in 193 separate boats. Now, when you live in separate boats, if one boat catches COVID, the next boat will not get it. You're separated. But the fact that COVID spread instantly to the rest of the world showed that the 8 billion people of planet Earth no longer live in 193 separate boats. Instead, as I explained in my book, The Great Convergence, they live in 193 separate cabins on the same boat. So once you are on the same boat, clearly you don't need captains or crews to take care of the cabin. You need captains or crews to take care of the boat as a whole. And this explains why we need more global governance. And this explains why the demand for global governance is increasing. That's very clear. So the next question, therefore, is why is the supply of global governance diminishing? And here the answer is a very complicated one. I'll try to explain it as simply as I can. But there are at least three reasons why the supply of global governance is diminishing. The first reason is that many of the institutions of global governance that we have in our world today, whether it's the United Nations, the IMF and the World Bank, or even the World Trade Organization or its predecessor, GATT, GATT, all these organizations were in some ways a gift from the West to the rest of the world. At the end of World War II, when the West felt triumphant after winning World War II, and as you know, China fought with the West in World War II against Germany and Japan, that great confidence at the end of the victory enabled them to create global institutions which have done very well for the world. But the reason why the West could do that after 1945 is because the West felt very confident. It had won World War II. But today, in 2023, we're dealing with the opposite phenomenon. More and more Western countries are feeling insecure. They are aware that the era of Western domination of world history is coming to an end. And when you feel insecure, you cannot provide leadership to build global institutions, global governance institutions. And that's why when it comes to leadership of global governance, what used to be provided by the West in the past is no longer provided. Now, the second reason why global governance is diminishing, the supply of global governance is diminishing, is that the number one power in the world and in the West, the United States of America, which also used to play a leading role in providing global governance, is now sadly preoccupied with the geopolitical contest against China. Now, this is a complicated subject. I've written a book called Has China Won, which has been published in China too, in which I explain the structural reasons why the United States today, unwisely, as I explain in my book, is engaged in a geopolitical contest with China because the United States wants to remain as the number one power in the world. And if that's the case, if that's the priority of the United States, then clearly if it is preoccupied with this geopolitical contest, it is in no condition to provide global governance in the way that it used to in the past. Because it can no longer bring the countries of the world together. In some ways, it is dividing the world with this geopolitical contest. So that's the second reason why the supply of global governance is going down. And the third reason why the supply of global governance is going down is that the vast majority of the world's population who live in the global south, in fact, they make up 88% of the world's population, are still in many ways preoccupied with their own immediate issues and challenges that they have to deal with. So sadly, even from the global south, there are no immediate leaders who can stand up to provide an alternative leadership to replace the declining leadership from the West when it comes to dealing with issues of global governance. But at the end of the day, does this mean that the cause is lost? Does this mean that we have to give up and say nothing can be done about the issue of global governance? I am actually not a pessimist. I am an optimist. I believe that there is a solution for the issue of how to deliver global governance. I think there are many things we can do. For example, I think it's time for the West to stop trying to dominate institutions of global governance. I mean, to give you a simple example, we had a rule that was created in the 1940s. Can you imagine how long ago that was? In the 1940s. That said that the IMF should always be run by a European and the World Bank should always be run by an American. Maybe that rule made sense when the West was so dominant in the world. But today, the share of Western economies in the world has declined considerably. The wisest course of action for the West to take would be to share the leadership of the institutions of IMF and World Bank with other countries, and they should allow a non-American to run the World Bank, and they should allow a non-European to run the IMF. This is something that is easy. It can be done, and it should be done by the West. And at the same time, another thing that the West could do is learn to cooperate better with China and with many global institutions that China has created for the benefit of the world. We know, for example, that the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, AIIB, has been successful. We know that the new development bank set up by the BRICS countries has been successful. Now, the wisest thing for the West to do would be to encourage IMF and the World Bank to cooperate with these new institutions like AIIB and New Development Bank, and you will get a better world. So there are clearly solutions that are available in the world and in the West for us to deliver better global governance. And this is why I'm glad that you're having this conference now to discuss what the world can do. And here, before we go to your next session with Professor Chang Weiwei, I have a question to pose to my good friend, Professor Chang Weiwei. And my question to him is, what is the vision that China has for global governance in the 21st century? It is not a secret that as China becomes stronger and stronger, many in the world are looking to China to provide greater leadership in the field of global governance. And this is why your conference is so timely. And I hope that Professor Chang Weiwei will help us out by sharing with us what he thinks is the vision of China in the area of global governance. And with this, please let me wish you a very successful event, and I hope that I'll be able to join you in person the next time. Thank you very much.